So today we're going to be taking a look at Bricks. Now, what is Bricks? Is it a page builder? It is, but it's not a page builder. Bricks is WordPress theme, but it's kind of more than that. Bricks is, well, it's more of a hybrid theme and page builder all rolled into one with the added benefit of a theme builder. Let's look at it another way. If Oxygen, Elementor, and Divi kind of had a bit of a love child, Bricks might well be that love child. It has a lot of things in common with those different things. It's kind of taken those good things out of all of those, listened to the community of those different sort of page builders and theme builders and so on, and built a builder that has a lot of those features inside there. So we're going to take a look at this today. This is kind of like my first look. I've spent probably about an hour and a half playing about with this. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that I picked up, give you some of my initial feedback, the things I like, the things I think could be improved upon, and then I'm going to ask you for your opinions in the comment section. So before we waffle in, let's just take a look at what we're going to be covering in Bricks today. So first off, let's just take a look over the Bricks website to see exactly what's going on. Now, at the time of talking about this, there's a 40% discount for the early launch kind of thing. How long this will last, I'm not too sure. But just to go over and let's take a look at the pricing of this anyway. So these are lifetime prices at the moment. So a starter for one website is going to come in at $59. There may be taxes applied to this depending upon where you are in the world. But the ultimate, which gives you 1,000 licenses, 1,000 website licenses, is coming in at $149 at the moment. And like I say, this is lifetime for regular updates, technical support, community template access. So basically, everything you should need to be able to use this. Now, this is coming from the Happy Files developer, and I purchased Happy Files when that was originally on the same kind of launch offer as this for quite some time. And I've got to be honest, it's a great little platform. It's a great piece of software. So I have no doubt that this will continue to grow and develop in the same way that Happy Files has. So that's the pricing side of things, which obviously is one of the most important things to start off with. But what exactly does this do, and why should you even care? Well, as we can see across the top, we've got a builder, a designer, performant, and we can take a look at the roadmap. So what am I talking about? Well, basically, this is a theme and a page stroke site builder all bundled into one platform. So when you install it, you install the theme and the child theme if you want to, which I would recommend you do. And in much the same way as you have with Divi, you have all of this kind of packaged together as one platform. Now, some of the things that are kind of solid with this to start off with is it feels much better than a version 1.0 product. It's well thought out, well designed. It's very, very fast to work with in the editor, which you'll see when we jump over into that in a moment. The design aspect of it, it's basically, you could look at this as if the developers looked at a lot of the feedback that's coming out for various different page builders out on the market at the moment, listened to what people are asking for, and thought, okay, how many of these can I realistically launch with, and how many of those can we push on to as we develop? Take it into consideration what people actually want and need from a builder. And I'm going to call it a builder. I'm not going to call it a page builder or a theme builder. We're just going to call it a builder. So you have a lot of features inside here for a version 1.0. Now, I've been playing about with this for probably a day and a half, and I've just scratched the surface of what you can do just so I can see how it works with various different tools that I use on a very daily basis. And this is nothing to look at. This is more a case of me just testing out functionality. And this has all been done with the builder itself. So created an archive page, which I can edit various aspects of. We can jump in, and I've created the template page for this. We've got a sticky header on there, or a sort of scrolling header kind of thing at the top. Created a 2-column layout. We've got a related article section at the bottom, a footer that applies to every single page. So this is very akin to what you're probably used to if you're coming from something like Elementor, if you're using Oxygen, if you've used Divi. There's kind of little bits and pieces from each of those builders, but take in probably some of the best aspects of it. Now, is it perfect? Not for me. There are still some things that I don't really get on with that well, and these are things that I don't really get on with very well in other page builders. So I don't think it's specific to Bricks. I think this is more just either the way that I'm used to working with the tools that I've been using for quite some time, and I just don't find these alternative ways of working. Like Divi, for example, I don't really like the interface on that. It looks nice. I find it cluttered when you want to get to do something. And there's certain aspects of that that I find are inside Bricks, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so when you install Bricks, you'll have a new entry. So if we come in first of all into the appearance and we go into themes, you'll see what I have is the Bricks theme and the Bricks child theme. Both of these are downloads that you have when you purchase Bricks. So you'll have access to both of these. And I would recommend installing the child theme because you can, if you want to, get stuck in and do a lot more under the hood tweaking than what you can do with some of the other, or maybe not necessarily what you can do, but it's easier inside Bricks. So there's certain aspects of that are akin to Oxygen. So once we've installed those and activated those, then we're going to jump into the Brick section. And inside here, you can see we've got a Getting Started, which is a nice, simple way of showing you the various different things you should look at doing. So getting started, then dealing with templates and development, those kinds of things. It's like I say, for a version 1.0 version of software, it's very mature in the way that it operates and the way it's been put together. So kudos for doing something really solid there. So if we jump into the Getting Started section, we have access to the Academy, which then tells us things like how to install it, how to work with Gutenberg, the various different things you can do. And you can click and we can hop into lots of those. And many of these will have videos as well as written content to show you how you get around. But I think if you're used to any kind of page builder, it won't take you very long to grasp the concept, grasp the basics, and start creating pages. You know, whether that's just going to be a single page or whether you want to create headers and footers and then template files and so on. It's not particularly complicated. I've probably looked at 2 or 3 things inside the documentation just to get an idea of how certain things may work. Other than that, I've just got stuck in, and most of it, like I say, is very, very intuitive. If we go to how to edit with Bricks, for example, you can see this will take you into another article. So all that help is really, really easy to access. You can get hold of that quite quick and easy. If we hop into the templates, then you can see this is very akin, like I say, to working with something like Elementor with the template files and so on, and probably most other page builders. So we can see we can edit this with Bricks, so we can go in and take a look at editing those. And you can see I've got a home page, which is set with a condition to be the front page. It's a content type template. Then we've got a post archive, which is an archive type template that is then given the conditions for all archives, default footer for the entire website and so on. So pretty self-explanatory how to do this. And if you jump into add a new template, you'll just come into what looks like the normal WordPress editor. You can give this a title. You can say what template type it is, and you can see we've got headers, footers, content, sections, archive, search results, and error pages, so your 404s covered and so on. You can tag your templates if you want to organize these, and you can create template bundles. You can apply featured images. None of these things I've done at the moment because I'm more interested in how the builder itself works. Now, one thing I do want to say is if you are interested in taking a look at Bricks in more detail and you'd like me to create some dedicated tutorials on how to use it, please let me know in the comment section below. Or if you see this on Facebook, let me know in that thread there. Tell me the kinds of things you'd be interested in and I'll be more than happy to take a look at creating some more detailed, structured content that's beyond this kind of first look video. Okay, so once we've seen that, if we come into the settings section, and we'll come back to the templates and things, we'll have a look in there. You can see that we have several different options inside here to deal with the settings for the particular install of Bricks. Now, if you look at some of the videos, you'll see that that is pre-version 1. I think that one of the videos I looked at was like version 0.09. So there are going to be some slight differences if you're looking at some of the tutorial videos to what you may see if you purchase this yourself. So we've got general. We can say, where do we want the Bricks editor to be available? Do we want to restrict it to pages? Do we want to access posts? Gutenberg data, for example. Now this is quite cool. Do you want to load Gutenberg data into Bricks, and do you want to save Bricks data as Gutenberg data? I'm not going to go into this too much detail, but what you can kind of do is you can have a two-way synergistic link between Gutenberg data and editing that, or at least opening that up and continuing your editing process inside Bricks. And you can do it in the reverse way. So if you create something inside Bricks, do you want to make that data accessible to the Gutenberg editor? Those kinds of things. So that's quite cool to see. We can access SVG uploads, and you can set what access level or what roles can do that. Builder access, as you'd expect, pretty self-explanatory what you can do. You can just set this based upon the user roles. Templates, we have some options inside here, including things like accessing and saving remote templates, which is quite cool. Again, I'm not going to go into these things too much. The builder, we can set this to disable autosave, but by default it saves every 60 seconds, so any changes you make will be saved every 60 seconds. But you can change that cycle to whatever value you want, or you can disable it completely. You can alter the builder into dark mode or light mode, whatever you prefer, and you can choose what the toolbar logo link does as well, whether you want that to go to preview, homepage, so on. So that's quite cool. You can edit various different things inside here. Under performance, some of the things that if you use any kind of performance software to enhance the speed of your WordPress, you're probably used to things like disabling emojis, those kinds of things, disabling lazy load and so on. So you can tweak this, and I'm sure this is something that as this goes beyond version 1 to 1.1, 1.2 and so on, we'll see more features inside a lot of these settings, and I would assume probably more features inside the performance setting. API keys, if you want to link this through to Unsplash to get images directly inside the Bricks editor, you can do that. You've got your Google Maps API, reCAPTCHA, MailChimp, those kinds of things. So that's quite cool to see. Now, when it comes to like the MailChimp API, I'd like to see more APIs inside here. For me, I use MailerLite. I'd like to see something to do with MailerLite inside here so I can link it through. Or worst case scenario, maybe even having access to linking this through something like Integromat or, Zapier, those kinds of things. And if you want to add in some custom code for CSS, header and body scripts, footer scripts, you can drop that inside here. So the settings gives us plenty of options to tweak exactly how this is all going to perform and work. Next up, we have custom fonts. Now I'm not going to cover this in too much detail, but the nice thing is with this, you've got access to your 800 plus Google fonts, but you also have the ability to upload your WOF2 or TTF font files and use those natively inside here. So if you don't want to rely upon Google, you want to access these and you want to have them as part of your site, you can upload them inside here and use them inside the Bricks editor. So again, I always like to see the ability to work with fonts inside the editor itself. You can set up custom sidebars, and you can see we can register these with a name and a description. And then when you're creating your templates, your pages, your posts, and so on, and you want to put in your custom sidebars, you can do that quite easily. System status is going to give you information about the environment, the theme, all those kinds of things, so you can check anything you want inside here. And license, as its name would suggest, is going to give you access to the license options. Now, I've got advanced custom fields installed inside this setup as well. Reason being, I want to show you later how we can work with dynamic data directly inside the Bricks editor. And this for me is one of the key things on why I'm quite excited about where this goes, because for a version 1.0 release that has native integration for dynamic content, your normal content, your normal sort of dynamic content to do with WordPress itself, so your post titles, meta, and all those kinds of things. Great to see that. But the ability to work with ACF, pods, I think it's MetaBox it works with. Most of these meta field type tools, I think tool set is exclusion at the moment. It's built directly inside here, and it is incredibly easy to work with. So I'm kind of excited where this is going. So I hope they focus more on this aspect. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's just create something. Let's just jump into the templates. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete my single post template, and we'll recreate that just so you can see how this all works. So we're going to bin that off, and we'll just delete this completely. And we're going to add a new template. So we're just going to call this, we'll just say this is going to be our default single post. Okay. Nothing you haven't already seen in lots of my other tutorials. Let's just set this to be a content, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to save this. I'll save it as a draft or publish it. I'll publish it. Doesn't really matter too much. It's a test site anyway. So now what we're going to do is we're going to edit this with Bricks. And once I open this up, you're going to kind of feel like you've seen most of this before, which is no bad thing, because I think having something set out that's very familiar is going to speed up the learning cycle for working with a tool like this. Okay, so let's have a quick tour around the interface. Like I say, I don't think I need to go into too much detail because I'm sure you've been used to this kind of thing. Top left-hand corner, we can take a look at the structure, which is going to give us the hierarchy of the page. So all the sections, the rows, the widgets that are being used, all that kind of good stuff. And we'll take a look at that a little later. You can directly insert a new section. You can insert templates, and you can get help on how to use this particular function. Next up, you've got your hover styles, which you can set different hover styles for various different things. You've got your pages, which you can see I've created a couple of pages inside here, and you can just jump in and start editing those. And you can see we've got various different options inside there. Let's just take off the hover styles. Your revisions, so you've got full revision history on here. So as you're creating content and editing things, you'll have access to those revisions inside here. So if you want to roll back, you can do that. And like I say, remember, this is saving every 60 seconds unless you change that. Inside the settings, then we've got our theme style settings, which we can choose from a range of different predefined sort of styles, theme styles, and these are global styles, and you can set up your own global style. So again, it's one of those things that some other builders have taken quite some time to roll this out. It's integrated directly into version 1, so really good to see that option. So you can see we've got these template bundles that are part of the templates that ship with Bricks, and we'll worry about that a little later anyway. So let's go back to our settings. We've got page settings, and you can see we can do things like we can disable the headers and footers. We can deal with one-page navigation, so pretty cool to see that. Your SEO options are inside here. You've got social media options, so you can set up social media. And as you can see, you've got direct links to Unsplash if you've got an account set up, which is free, I understand. And your custom code is inside here as well. So all nicely, neatly laid out. And finally, the template settings, which is where we can access those conditions and we can populate content. So that's the first section, and how you can see that all works on the left-hand side. If we click on the plus, that just takes us to our elements or our widgets, of which there are a considerable amount for a version 1.0 release. Okay, so then across the top, we have all the different breakpoints. So we've got our desktop, which is our base breakpoint. We've got tablet portrait, tablet landscape, mobile landscape, and mobile portrait. And we can set up values directly inside here as well if we want to. We've then got undo and redo. We've got some help. We've got templates. We've got edit in WordPress, which will take us back into the WordPress editor. We've got our preview mode, which I quite like, because once you hit that, you can see that now takes us into preview mode, and you can see just how quick this editor is. And then we can just press it again and go back. Super quick to work with, so really quick and intuitive. And finally, we have the save option on the very right-hand side. Now, when you come over these, you can see we've got the insert new section, the template, and we've got the help. So what we can do is we can say, let's insert a new section. So we can click, and that gives us this blue box, which is a section. And everything is color-coded inside here. There's different colors for various different sections, for rows, for columns, for widgets. All those things have different colors. Now you can see we've got a very Elementor-esque section at the top with these 4 icons, and you've got your edit your column, you've got your add a column, you've got clone column, which is just duplicating, and you've got your clear column. Then if you go over onto the right-hand side, you can see we've got a different set of colors now, this sort of purpley kind of color, and this is for our row. So blue is for our columns, purple is for our rows, and then we've got orange for our sections. So you can see we can click on any of these and we get options on the left-hand side then for how this all works. So you can see if we select edit column, we now have a column, we can control the column. We click on this, we can edit the row, and now we're in control of the row. And again, it tells us at the top what we're actually editing. Finally, if we click on the section, you can see now we have the section. So really quite easy and intuitive to work with. So once we've created this, what we can do is we can simply come in and say we want to drag an element inside there, and there's a heading. We now have things broken down into content and style. So this is where it's very similar to Oxygen. Now I think Oxygen could definitely take a few lessons out of Bricks' interface, because while they share a lot of similarities in how things are laid out, I think this is done in a much sleeker fashion. Now, before we move on and start building the various different components out, let me just go back to something I showed you earlier, which is the structure option. We click on that, you can see now, because we've started adding content, we now have structure inside here. So we've got a section, and we can expand that out. We can see the row inside there, we can expand it out, we can see the column inside there, and then we can see the heading. So there's our hierarchy. Again, exactly the same pretty much as what we have inside Oxygen. Now, for me, the thing that I don't like so much about this is the fact that this is in the left-hand section. So I either have this open or I have something else available to me. So in other words, if I come in and I want to start editing these sections or whatever, once I click that, I lose my hierarchy. And to go back in, I've got to go back into structure and everything is collapsed. I do have the expand all option, which is very, very useful, but I would like to see this being something that can float, which while we can position that wherever we kind of want, we still have basically the same options inside there. So we're not gaining anything by being able to move that around. So if Thomas is listening to this, I would love to see you have the ability to pull the structure side of things out and separate that from what we have on the left-hand side. I think it would just be a little bit more useful when you want to have your hierarchy open and you want to be able to be editing columns, rows, sections, widgets, whatever it is that you're working on editing. So just a little thing. And like I say, as I go through this video, I'm going to talk about the things that I think could do with enhancing from my personal point of view, for a usability point of view, for someone that probably spends most days of the week dealing with different types of page builders and interfaces and getting to find the things that are quick and easy to work with and the things that slow me down. Okay, so with that being said, let's just take a look now at how we do some things. Now, what are some of the things that I find a little bit awkward from my working practice? I'm not the biggest fan of having lots and lots of different widgety icons like this for various different sections, especially over on the right-hand side as opposed to being in the center, which kind of sounds a bit silly, I know. But I tend to work on a 4K screen, and while it's not always maximized, it gets a little bit frustrating to have to go from the left to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right to select things. And this is one of those things that I could say I think Divi is also guilty of doing this kind of thing. Do I think there's a better solution? I don't know. I'm sure there are better ways, and I know I could sort of push this over and dock this on the right-hand side, and that might be something that I take a look at doing. But these are just little things that are in no way a problem when it comes to working with this. They're just little things that I've noticed for myself. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this widget and we're going to start building out the template for this page. And I'm going to show you how easy it is, but also I'm going to show you how easy it is to start adding in dynamic data, which for me is the most exciting part of this. So you can see when you select a section and we take a look on the right-hand side, and we expand this out, you can see we can go to the sort of little dots in the right-hand side, and we now have more options. So again, this is one of those things that I think this is a super intuitive way of working. So we can save this as a template, a section as a template, which is really cool. We can delete the section, we can clone it, we can insert a template below this, we can move it around, we can add a new section, or we can edit the section. And this kind of flows down through the hierarchy that we have inside the structure. Slightly less options depending on how far you go down and what it is you select, but really solid and easy to see how to deal with this kind of thing. Okay, so now we've seen most of the interface. Let's take a look. Let's just delete this section. And let's just add a new section in. So we're going to say insert a section. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this now to drop in a background image. We're going to drop in our title, and we're going to drop in some meta information. So to do that, we can come over, we can click plus, and if we scroll through, you can see we have lots and lots of really cool options. What we want to do is go ahead and start adding in some of the key things we want. So we come down to the single, which is what we're currently working with. You can see we have a block of different options. Most of these you should be used to if you set anything up to do with dealing with templates in things like Elementor and so on. And you can also pin these particular features, which I think is super cool, which again, so many other page builders could really learn a thing or two from what's being done here. What looks like really, really simple options are a game changer for people that use these kind of features day in, day out. So if we pin this post title, that becomes a pinned item right at the top. We've got quick access to this. How cool is that? That's really, really quite cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to just drag this and drop this into our section. And there we go. There's our default single post. So once we've got that, we can now go through and set up the content. And we can also set up any styling we want inside here. So at the moment, this is set to be in H1, but we can choose from all the normal culprits. So your H1 through to H6. I'd like to see some additional options inside there. So we can set this as a div, as a span, and so on. So we can do other things to this. We can choose the type, and you can see we can set this to be a hero or a lead. We can say it's going to be a hero option. We can set a style inside here, and this is where our global styles come in. And you can see we've got things like primary and secondary, and we can change all of these. So we set this to be secondary, for example. You can see that pulls in the secondary color, whatever you set up in your global styles. Go to dark, for example, that pull the dark style in, light style. You can see, or we can just delete that completely. You can add a prefix or a suffix if you want to, and you can add some context. So context to title on archive search templates. I haven't really tested this out, so I'm assuming, I could be wrong on this, so please correct me if I am, that this will put whether it's like a archive or a taxonomy or a tag or something like that. So that's quite useful. If that is the case, I do like the ability to disable that because I kind of find that a little frustrating. Okay, so you can see we can edit the title in settings, page settings, and SEO if we want to. Let's just jump over to the style. Now we have all of our styling options inside here. Our layout option, and you can see this is where we've got our margins and our paddings and so on. We can set we want to display this as a block or none. We can set it to auto width. We can adjust the opacity, the positioning. You can set your Z index, any animations, and that's just inside the layout section. So pretty cool to see all that. We can link or unlink these values if we want to. We can set the width and so on. So let's just say we want to set this to be a vertical height, and we're going to set this to be something like, let's just say 60%. You can see that now expands that out for us. You can say auto width if you want to, and you can see this will automatically fill out the size of it based upon the content that's inside there. So we don't want to do that for obvious reasons. The other thing I like about this is you've got direct interaction with the editor itself. So instead of having to go in and manually insert your margins and so on, you can do it directly inside the editor. So if you want to, you can drag this down and you can see we've set that to 45 pixels. And if we take a look on the layout, we'll see 45 pixels of padding. What you can do is, though, you can link these. So you can see the little chain link. We can link that together, and now the opposites are linked. So now the top and the bottom adjust proportionally. If you go to the side, you can see the sides adjust proportionally. You can also come back up and you can link again. So now say all sides are linked. So all four sides are now linked together, and we can get equal values, and everything is set up equidistant. So pretty cool. Again, really, really easy to do. No keyboard shortcuts to worry about remembering or anything. You can just simply link the sides, unlink the sides, link the opposites, whatever you kind of want to do. Or you can come in and you can manually set those values directly inside here. So let's just take those off there. So as you see, adjusting padding and so on is really, really easy. Just depends on what you select. You can see we can add margins, padding, depending upon which side of the box that you're actually holding your mouse. So really simple to do. Okay, so now we've seen how easy it is to start editing the basic layout. Let's take a look at how we can build out our template. Now at the moment you can see this has default single post, which doesn't really mean anything. So let's make our lives a little easier by having some content that we can see that we can edit. Now to do that is really simple. We're going to come into the settings section, into our template settings, into populate content, and inside there we can choose what content we want to use for our preview. Now this just makes the whole process of designing your templates considerably easier. So we know this is a single, so we're going to choose the content type and set that to single post or page. We can then take a look at any posts or pages we have created, and we'll choose this hello world as an example, and we'll hit apply preview. That's going to save it, reload the editor, which is pretty quick anyway, and that's then going to show us the content we've just chosen. So you can see hello world now instead of just that placeholder. So that's really easy to do. So the next thing we're going to do is set up the position of this and also apply some styling and put a background image inside here. Now we're going to work with dynamic data like I said. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to our structure. We're going to select our setting and we're going to edit that. You can see we've got that set up now because this is in orange and we know we've got a section because sections are orange. This is where though, like I say, I would like to have the structure separated so I could have that on the one side to select the items, and then I can easily reference whatever items I want and then make the changes, go back and reference without having to open these panels up and expand things. It's an extra couple of clicks that I don't think that I want to be having to do every single time I want to use these options. So that being said, let's come into the background section. Click on the little background color chip and you can see we can select an image, which obviously in this case isn't what we want to do unless you want a global image to be applied to all of your single posts. You can browse Unsplash if you set up the API for that, or we can use dynamic data. And you see, built directly into bricks. So we're going to choose that option and we're going to say featured image, and that's going to load in the featured image. We can choose what size we want to use from the range of different sizes we have, and I'm going to just choose the largest option we've got, so we've got the highest version. If you want to, you can apply a parallax effect, and you can also position the background attachment in the same way you can with Elementor and the same with Oxygen. Now for me, I would love to see a Brizy style way of working. Now I like with Brizy, I can literally click anywhere that I want inside this image to set my focal point, and that to me is a more intuitive way of working over having to do things like top left, center, because sometimes your focal point doesn't match any of those coordinates that you can set. Whereas if I could just click on what I want, that gives me a much better way of working, a much more visual way of working. So Thomas, if you're watching this and you can do that, you can make that happen, I think that would be super useful to add in. Okay, so we've got all the normal options. So let's just set this to be, for example, center. We want no repeat, and we're going to set that to cover. Well, that's perfectly fine. So what we're going to do now is come back out of this. We're going to go back to our layout, and we have the option for full width section. So we're going to set that to be full width, and we're going to come into our height. We're going to set this to a vertical height, or sorry, viewport height, I should say. And we'll set this to something like 65%. So this is 65% of the size of the window we're using. That's what the VH is vertical, so viewport height. So that's really easy, and if we want to check what this looks like on the different devices, we can simply do that. And the thing that I like about this is you can see when we make changes, if we adjust styling or padding and things like that, all we need to do is choose the view that we want to use, this, sort of like the breakpoint that we want to use, make the changes, and that's immediately reflected. So really, really easy to work with. Okay, so we've done that. Next thing you want to do now is to select our content. You can see there's our H1, our hero. We're going to come into our style. We can come into our typography, and we can choose our font family. So you can see all the normal culprits are there, your system fonts alongside all the Google ones. And if you've uploaded custom fonts, they'll be there for you as well. So we're going to set this to something like Montserrat because, well, let's be honest, that's what we all use. Font weight we'll set to something like 600. Font style, we'll leave that as it is. And we're going to come down until we get to the text color. And we're going to set that to be something like white. Now you can see the thing I like about this is you've got all of those colors there, which are your sort of global colors. You can choose from other global palettes should you have created them. You can switch between list view, which will show you a list and any names you apply to this, or you can just jump back over to the grid view and you can name any of these, simply come in and name them, which is again really, really cool. You can copy that color to the clipboard if you want to. You can edit it or you can delete it. So again, just built in, really, really nice way of working. Want to add a new one in? Well, create a new palette if you want to. You can do that. Switch between hex values, RGB or HSL, so you can set these up to use whatever values you're most comfortable with. So that's pretty cool to see. And you've got your hue, saturation, lightness, and transparency sliders as well, your HSL. So really cool to see that. Or you can just be lazy and just set it inside there directly. Really, really easy to do. Okay, so once we've done that, we'll just minimize that and we'll make any tweaks we want. So we'll say, text align, we're going to set that to be center. And we're going to say text transform, we want this to be all uppercase. And actually, let's make this a little bit thinner. Let's make a nice thin slimline font. And then we've got the font sizes, your line heights, and all those normal things. Pixels, Ms, and Rems. So all the options you should need to set your values inside there. So let's just adjust the font size. And we'll set that to be something like 70, for example. Okay, so with our title in, we're ready now to add some more items in. So let's come into elements and widgets. We're going to just find text. And this is something that I think is really cool. Let's just drop a text item inside there, set the alignment to be the middle, come into our style section and come into our typography. And we'll set this to be, let's go for, I don't know, let's go for Georgia. It doesn't really matter too much. We're going to come down and we're going to set our text color to be white as well. So we're going to just drag that up to be white. There we go. And we'll adjust the font size to be something like, I don't know, let's just say 18. Okay, so now we've got that inside there. Let's go to the content. You can see there's a normal text editor, and you can edit this directly on the page if you want to as well. You don't have to do it in the left-hand column. But this is what I really, really like about this. Let's just delete that from there. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this little dynamic data icon. And this is really, really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to say author, colon, and we're going to just drag the author's detail in. So we're going to come to author, post author name, boom. There's our author's name. Let's just set that to be center aligned again. Let's put another pipe inside there. And we're just going to say posted on. And we're going to do the same again. So we're going to click the dynamic data. We're going to come to our post and we're just going to scroll down and say post date. Bang, that puts the placeholder in there. So let's go down to the next line. And I've got some ACF data inside here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put in publication. Now, we can come in and we can start using these options. You can see ACF inside there, but if you had pods or you had metabox or anything, they'd be listed here as well. And you can see we've got publication date and publication, and these are ACF fields. Now, what I can also do is I can click inside there. You can see that puts ACF publication. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do this manually. So we're going to say publication or publication date. Doesn't really matter too much. And what I can do is I can open the curly brackets. And then I can start typing in exactly what I want. So we say publication, and I'm sure this is probably going to be wrong, but you'll get the picture. And I can drop that inside there. So there's my short code or my macro, whatever you want to kind of call it, for any of my fields. All of them, you can see, have these custom curly brackets, and then inside there, the name of that particular metadata. So I can manually put this in, and I can put it in line, and this is something I really like. I'm not restricted to only being able to put this in little blocks, then having to use CSS positioning to align things up next to each other. I can literally just come in with a text box, type in what I want, drop in the dynamic data that I want directly inside there. Really intuitive, really simple to work with. And then I can come in, I can set my type and my style and so on inside there. So I can style all this, and I can go into text, and you can see I can do it inside there if I want to in a simplified editor. And again, we've got all the options for our typography. So let's just say we want to change that from Georgia, and we're going to put that to be, I don't know, Helvetica, for example. And we'll set that to be 16. We don't want it to be quite so big. There we go. Job done. So that's how easy it is to start adding our dynamic data inside you. And like I say, this is what I'm excited about. I love to see things that make life easy. Okay, so now we've got our title, our featured image, we've got our post data, and all those kinds of things on there. Let's come back over to our structure. Let's just add in a new section. So we're going to just say we want to add a section. Long pause there while I figure out what the heck I'm doing. So there's a new section. You can see it's all ready for us. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a search for post, and we want content. So we're going to drag that down into there, and that will be our post content. So for some odd reason, we're not seeing anything right now. So I'm not too sure why, but let's just hit save just to make sure we've got everything saved on there. And let's just preview this. So hit preview mode, and we're not getting anything. So this is... sometimes I get a little quirk like this where things just don't necessarily show up. So what I do is I go back to my structure, expand everything out, and you can see the post content is inside there. So we know we've got that element there. Let's edit it. And for some reason, it's deciding it doesn't want to show. So let's expand that. This could well be down to me. I could be doing something wrong here. So I'm going to delete that element. You say, yes, I'm sure. Let's try that again. Let's just scroll down until we find our post content. Let's try dropping that inside there. For some reason, we're not actually getting anything in there. So edit WordPress content inside WP admin. We don't want to do that. We don't want to come into here. And this is our post content. So you can see we have content inside there. We have text and images and all those kinds of things. So for some reason, this isn't playing ball with me right now. Okay, so I've reloaded the editor, and as you can see, the content has now shown up. So strange little quirk there. It is still version 1. This could be down to me, but I use this on both a Mac and a PC, both in Chrome, so it might be a Chrome-based issue. But as you can see, there is a little bit of a quirk every now and again. But a quick reload, and everything is sorted out. So there's our content. Now, what we can do is we can also apply custom CSS to any of this. So let's just select this column, which contains our custom content. And what I want to do is I want to make a bit more space above all of my images, but I don't want to go to the hassle of doing this inside the Gutenberg editor or one image at a time. So we open up the CSS option. You can see we can add in custom CSS. Now, if you've ever done this inside Elementor, you know that you use the term selector. Inside Bricks, we use the term root. So it works in exactly the same way. We just use root, and we just open our curly brace, press enter, and it closes our curly brace for us, and now we can set things up. So what I want to do is I want to affect the images in this particular section. So I'm going to root an image, and we're just going to put padding or margin, doesn't really matter too much in this example, and we'll say top, and we'll put a colon, and we'll just say 25px, and we'll close that down. So you can see that's now put that inside there, so we can just copy that. We'll say copy, we'll drop that underneath, and we'll just close that little gap up, and we'll just say padding bottom, and there's our padding top and bottom, and all our images have that. So it's just as easy it is in most of the page builders. We can easily do that inside here as well, and we can apply CSS filters and all kinds of cool things inside here. Okay, so there's our page is now starting to take shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in another section. So again, we can come down to the section structure, and I just kind of like working this way because I think it's just a nice clean way of doing things. So let's add a new section. This is now going to be our section for our related articles. So what we can do is we can change this. So we can just name this, and we'll say related articles or posts, whatever you want to call it. So really easy to name all this. And again, you can see we can expand it out and everything we expect is inside there. So let's come down now and do a search for related. There's our related posts. We can drag and drop that into the relevant section and we now have related posts. Now we can adjust the query inside here. So we can say how many of these posts we want to display. We can choose what order, whether ascending or descending, randomize the order. Common taxonomy, so we can have these to base upon the categories, the tags, or template bundle. So for this example, we'll choose categories, and that's going to look at the category or categories this main article is in, and then find 3 related posts in the same article. Next up, we have the fields, which is where you control what we see inside these different sort of loop items. Now, this is one of the things that I would like to see more integration with the dynamic fields. So you can see we can choose title, meta, excerpt, and so on, and we can add more items. But we are still limited to just those 3 different entries. So even though we have dynamic data and they could have unique items, like we've seen for the ACF fields, for the publication and so on, we can't currently reference those inside here, to my knowledge. So I would love to see this expanded to give us access to those ACF or whatever dynamic sort of plugin we're using to give us those meta fields and give us access to those so we can create a custom loop. Or better still, I'd love to see a custom loop option inside here so we can create our own custom loops. Okay, so now we can just select this and we can make changes to it. So we want to make the background of this a little different. We can do just that. So we can come over, select the section, and now what we can do is we can just style it to whatever we want. So we can set the background inside there. We'll just say we want to put the background. We'll apply a color. We'll choose it from one of our default colors. And you can see that puts a background inside there. We can also come into our layout, and if we want to, we can say this is going to be a full width section. So now that gives us nice grey background all the way around. If we want, we can also come in and adjust any spacing inside there. We can link those together. So you can see once you kind of get used to working with this, it can be incredibly quick and easy to work with. And I like the visual way of editing things. I just find that way more intuitive. So again, we'll just save this to make sure that we have everything in place. And we're going to come and do one more item. So we're going to come back into our structure. Like I say, you don't need to do it this way. I just like doing it this way. We're going to add in a new section. We're just going to call this comments. And once we've done that, we're going to just select it. And we're going to just do a search inside our widgets for comments. Now we might not have any comments, it might be disabled on this, but you can see how easy it is to just drop this element inside there. Okay, so there's our page basically set up, and you can do so much more to this. So the next thing we need to do is come into our settings section, come into our template settings, and come in and set our conditions. So to commit to conditions, we're going to say we're going to add a new condition and we're going to set that. So what we're going to do is we can choose now where this is going to be used. So we're going to say that this is going to be used for a post type. And then we can choose what post type it is. Obviously, if you have custom post types inside here, you'd have those listed so you could reference those and create different designs for normal posts, different post categories, so on. So we're going to say this is for posts. So this is going to be the post type of post, and now that's going to be used as the default option for that. So what we can do now is we can just hit save on there. And now let's go and take a look at this in action. Okay, so here's a typical blog index page. There's one of our posts. Let's click and go and take a look. And you can see there's our information. Now, at the moment, there's nothing being pulled into the publication date, because I basically haven't filled that out. I just created some basic ACF fields to test this out. There's our image. You can see we've got that space above and below. We come down, there's our featured images, and unfortunately no comments because that's disabled. But you get the picture. Really easy to set things up inside here. Take a look at a different one and you can see that's now everything styled inside there. So it's all set up really, really simple. There's nothing too complex about this. And like I say, the ability to have that dynamic data directly integratable into your designs without the need for lots of little widgets and stuff is really, really refreshing to see. So this is my kind of first look at Bricks. This is not a comprehensive tutorial in any way. It's just showing you some of the things to give you just a little bit of an idea of what this can do. I think it's a great starting point. I think for version 1, it is incredibly full featured. There's tons of really good options. It's slick, it's fast, it's very smooth. There are a couple of things, like I've noted as we go through the video, I'd like to see just to make things work a little bit easier, to speed up the development and design process. That's pretty cool. Some things I would like to see expanded upon. So things like where you deal with the alignment of various different items, you've got to go into a menu to do that. I'd much prefer to see icons. So for things like centered, left, right, justified, and so on. I don't want to have to go into a menu, add an extra click, scroll down, choose what I want. Icons would be just so much more slick to use there. The pre-built templates, which we didn't look at, unfortunately, there are only around about 50 at the moment. So I'd love to see more of those being available for more people to use those as starting points. I didn't touch upon how you can use this with Gutenberg and so on. There's so many different things that I could show you. I could be here probably all day just showing you some of the cool things. So that's some of the things. The interface, as you've seen, can be a little flaky at times. There are some quirks on there. For example, I've got a bad habit of pressing the delete key instead of the backspace key on the PC and the Mac. And I find when I do that, whatever widget I've got just completely disappears, and I've got to undo a couple of steps to get that back. And for me, that's just a little bit frustrating. I'd like when you're going to delete something, you get a warning to say, are you sure you want to delete it? Because you get that with the rest of the interface when you're using the icon. So I'd like to see that when a key press is being used as well. Conditional logic for dynamic data. You can see how easy it is to include dynamic data into your pages built with bricks, your templates, whatever you kind of want to use it for. We need conditional logic. Anywhere you have dynamic data that can be optional to be input, give us conditional logic. So hopefully that'll be something that will be added to this before too much longer. Other than that, I can't say there's anything that jumps out at me right now that I think is lacking. Yes, there's lots of really cool things you could open and add to this and expand what could be done with it. But for a version 1, it's an incredible piece of software. So check it out. Link is in the description below. Like I said, there's a 40% lifetime discount at the moment, so you can grab that if you want to use it. Also, if you don't have something like advanced custom fields and you like that functionality, or you've been looking at Meta Box, I think it is, yeah. I'll put a link in the description to that as well, because that's currently on a lifetime offer over on AppSumo, and that works directly inside Bricks, which is great. You shouldn't need then to have to worry too much about messing about with what MetaBox actually requires you to do, and you're going to get better integration. So a link to that will be down below as well. But all in all, I like what Bricks is bringing to the table. I think it's a great starting point. But what do you think about this? Have you looked at it? Have you got it? Have you purchased it already? What's your experience? Is this something you take a look at? Not necessarily for now to replace what you already may have, but to augment the toolkit you have and let this grow and develop a little bit. Because apparently the performance on this is very, very good. The roadmap's looking exciting. There's a lot to get excited about with this. But let me have your comments, feedback, and opinions in the description below, because I'd love to see what you think of this. As always, my name is Paul C. All the links are down below. Until next time, take care.